you can never get too much grip in rock climbing. Like, that's not a problem that you can have, right?
Damn it, I've got too much grip.
Yeah, if only my fingers weren't so strong. I've like evolved into a new species. I can't stop. I can never stop, but at least I don't wear pajamas in public anymore.
Hey folks, welcome to another Icebox session. My name is Sean Cassidy and we are in conversation with Nova Scotia rock climbers. Today's guest to kick off the 2026 season is the one and only Dave Quinn. Dave is probably Nova Scotia's most dedicated and accomplished boulderers, currently projecting in the V13 range. He's kind of a mystery. You'll never see him in a gym. He climbs exclusively outside all year round and often at night. If you don't recognize his name, you will probably know him as the mastermind behind Mobeta, a free online bouldering guide that he started developing in 2011. In this conversation, we get into some deep discussions about grading, style, and his YouTube channel that has over 25,000 followers. We also talk about his revolutionary new finger training device that he designed and is selling internationally. I hope you enjoy this fascinating conversation. I'm really excited to talk to you. We don't really know each other. I think we maybe had a brief conversation once.
Do you think? I feel like in the very early days, perhaps, but that would have been 20 years ago, and I would have been a very beginner.
So you've been climbing 20 years, and you started at ground zero. Is that the deal?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, there was a gap in there, and I've been seriously climbing for 15, so that was like a 5-year intro period, and it would have been during that.
I remember seeing you, and you'd be kind of off on your own doing stuff. You seemed kind of like a lone wolf.
Yeah,
climbing in your scrubs or
pajamas. Ben called me Pajama Pants Quinn. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
in the earliest phase. Yeah.
Yeah. Darren and I were chatting recently, and it was like we would refer to you as Pajama Dave.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. So I was still living at home and was just wearing pajamas out in public is a phase. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. But also Sean also said that. He has a lot of respect for you and always did because you were doing your own thing. You didn't give a shit about Prana or Gucci or whatever hip climbers were wearing. You were wearing your pajamas, and that's just how it was.
Yeah, that's true. There was definitely an element of that. I wasn't conforming to.
And I don't think you do now either.
No,
like
of course
you do your own thing, right?
Yeah. But at least I don't wear pajamas in public anymore. So
your wife probably likes that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how did you get pulled in? What drew you to climbing in the first place? Like 20 years ago, so 2005-ish.
Yeah, so it would have been in undergrad, second or third year of university, and I started. I think the very first time I went would have been university intramurals. I wasn't really interested all that much at that phase. It took me
a diversion.
It was a diversion. Yeah, exactly. A way to get some fitness in, and I was only dabbling in climbing, and that it remained that way for those first several years.
Okay,
and that's when I would have first been at the rock court. Sorry, not the rock court, at ground zero.
Ground zero.
Yeah,
but it seemed
because
like
I lived in Dartmouth at the time. I was living at home.
Right, super convenient.
It was closer to home.
Yeah. So you say you're just sort of dabbling in those first 5 years. When did you start getting serious about it, and how did you kind of level up your game?
That's right. Yeah. So I went away to medical school and basically through a series of injuries and just other obligations drifted away and stopped climbing completely during that time. It was when I returned back to the Maritimes. So I went to medical school in Calgary. I got a series of injuries that are common in earlier stage climbers, and the kind of usual injuries that actually a lot of the people who are buying grippers now are having.
Well, I've had them all. I think.
Yeah, we've all had them all.
Right?
Yeah, you got to go through that phase, right? You got to have all your injuries, and then you'll learn how to manage them and climb through them and rehab them. But anyway, I had other things going on, and so I drifted away completely. Moved home to begin medical residency, and I thought, maybe I should take up climbing again because I still had a crash pad in my apartment from the before times.
And you weren't injured; you'd healed up.
Exactly, I'd healed up because I'd been not climbing for 2 years, and I started climbing regularly, exclusively outdoors. And that was the thing. I said, I'm going to climb outdoors because I got injured in the gym. So maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll get a dog. And just become an exclusive outdoor climber because maybe the injury potential will be less than on the gym And that is true. The nature of the in-cut holds and pockets and these kind of things that dynamic movement at a lower level of rock climbing. You don't get the same kind of dynamic movement on granite at a low level here because the rock doesn't give you the holds for that. And so it does kind of ease you into a more fingertip-based climbing rather than, you're not grabbing a jug, having a foot slip, and then shock loading your novice tendons and pulleys. And so I think it actually did work out. And through that second reintroduction into climbing, I met Ben at the Rock Court because now I was back at Dal living in Halifax. And we were out climbing one day and he said, it'd be cool as if we filmed all the climbs in Nova Scotia and put them on the internet.
This is Ben Smith we're talking about, Smizzle. And give me a year.
We're in 2011 at this time. I'd been back in Halifax for 2 years, climbing exclusively outdoors and sort of re-engaging with, some of my peers in the community. I met Ben at the Rock Court and we're climbing together outside night session. We're at the laundromat. I have a video camera at the time, which was very rudimentary. This is before iPhone. This is before really YouTube was very nascent.
Totally.
There wasn't a lot of, it was social media again, same thing, nascent. And Ben, we're climbing at the laundromat and I'm playing with my video camera more than anything, just for something to do. I've always been interested in photography and videography as completely aside from rock climbing. Ben said, maybe we should film all of the it'd be cool if there was a database where we could film all of the climbs and, have them recorded and have the beta online. And, we could do a website with video and photos and GPS and all of these things. And,
now what, Zig had something going on. I forget it. It was like he had Zig TV and he was cataloging routes online.
Yeah, so Zig did the original guidebook, so the paper guidebook, Halifax Bouldering.
It's up behind you somewhere.
That's right, yeah, which was what everybody was using, the authoritative resource for bouldering. But it was getting a little bit older at that time, and I thought it would be cool to have a digital version of that. And so I was very much inspired by what Zig had done, but thought that, photo and video and GPS, and this would be the way forward, which of course nowadays is becoming the standard for all climbing areas with these large climbing databases and commercialized offerings such as Kaya or the Crag and so on. The digital guidebook space is in 2025 is now it's going to become the standard. But we're in 2011, and Ben thought, it would be cool as if, we're basically envisioning
cutting edge.
We're envisioning what is now, 14 years later becoming the standard for all climbing areas. But we were sitting out there and I'm filming a video and Ben thought, yeah, this would be a great idea. And so that I set to work basically in 2011.
14 years.
14 years, yeah, with the goal of climbing and documenting everything that was in Zig's original guidebook. So that was my original motivation and goal, was to get on video every single climb in Halifax Bouldering.
Right, which the fallout from that, or the benefit, documentation for everybody else, but also you experience all those problems and probably help advance you steadily ticked off everything.
Yeah,
probably, right? So
that's right.
You got better through that process alone.
Incredible. It's funny because the time in 2011 when I set my sights on this goal of documenting all of Nova Scotia bouldering, sort of established in Ghislain's guidebook, I didn't have the capability to do even a third of it.
Right.
I was
at
not
the start.
At the start, I was not climbing at a level where it was even feasible.
Yeah. What kind of level would you be at that time? Do you remember?
V4, V5, but that's not all V4s and V5s. As everybody knows,
I'm a V4.
That's right.
Yeah,
there's a big difference between climbing a V5 and climbing all V5s.
Man, that is so true. On the route side of things, I've climbed harder, but I still think of myself as a 5'10" climber in a lot of ways.
That's right, yeah.
Because 5'10" means a lot of different things, right? And I'm not a master of all those different things.
Well, and I've been always such a completionist and such a volume-orientated climber that if you would ask me today what my climbing grade is, I'm going to say something much more conservative. I'll probably say what my consolidated grade is, like what I can do everything of, because those are the terms in which I think, right? Because that was foundational.
Yeah. Well, question for you. Interesting to hear you're a volumist, because I think I'm a little bit like that too. I like to do a bunch of different things, or as many things as I can, as opposed to focusing too heavily on projecting one thing. But now I think, are you still a volumist? You're totally focused on like one problem for like 3 or 4 months.
Well, you're skipping ahead, right? So we're still in 2011. You're skipping ahead until 2025.
Jeez, I got to get some more batteries for this thing.
The issue is the goal was to complete everything, but I needed to level up in order to get there. And so that's where all of the other projects that have become associated with my original climbing project, which was just to climb everything, evolved because I needed a path forward. But then as you progress through the sport, it's naturally going to change your engagement with it. And the other thing that I've always been pretty good at is just reinventing the game to keep myself fully engaged. I can't be a volumist anymore because I've run out of things to climb.
Of course.
You know, and just the same way that, you know, once I did all the 4s and 5s and 6s and 7s and 8s and 9s and 10s, you can see the thing. The problem is
there's fewer and fewer, and it's harder.
There's fewer and fewer, and it's harder and harder. So then I have to focus to realize my goal of full completion. I have to up my game. I have to improve my climbing. You know, I have to find a way forward, and that's not easy. And so it's getting harder and harder, and there's fewer and fewer lines. And so I'm just naturally adapting. And my true love would be just to, you know, climb a new single day challenge every single day for the rest of my life.
But you've run out.
But I ran out of that. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so if I could go back to those days, those were probably well, I don't know. I mean, to say what the most fun has been, what have I enjoyed? It's different.
So you mentioned kind of reinventing yourself a few times along the way. Yeah. Has that been a conscious thing, or has it just kind of naturally happened?
Well, it's been necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
Because so meaning you kind of got bored at certain points, or you got unmotivated?
You get stuck. Like there's no clear path. So how do you go from being a V4 climber to being a V13 climber? There's no clear path there, right? And there's no guarantee you're ever going to make it either. So if my goal was to do everything, but I needed somehow to make that happen. And what would happen is that at various points I got stuck. So I'd get to a certain level, and I'd climb basically more or less everything at that level with, you know, a few outliers here and there, but with no clear path to the next level. And so that's when the reinvention happens, right? So I see where I want to be, but I'm not there. That's when the focus shifts and the game changes, and you sort of reinvent your way forward.
Where would you look to find out how to reinvent yourself? Was this all self-driven and created from your mind, or were you reading books, or was there online stuff at the time? Or
well, even today, the online resources are very poor. That's why the mainstream information with regards to sort of how to improve at climbing doesn't really work. And everybody kind of knows. Everybody kind of knows that, right? Because if it did work, then people wouldn't get stuck. But they, you know, you've been around for a long time, and you've had your own journey in climbing, and everybody kind of knows. Everybody kind of gets to a level, and then you spend many, many years at that flat line. Yep. Exactly. Yep. And so I did that. I got to my flat line, and I wanted to progress, but nothing I did was working. And then you look for online resources. Certainly I read books. I read books in climbing. I read books in other sports to see if any of it would translate to climbing. So, but there was nothing that really worked. And that's when I had to start innovating.
Very cool. Because, I mean, that flat line you talk about, like, I think we all have different motivations, right? For me, you know, I was pushing myself as much as I could at a certain time, but I never liked working too hard. I was never like, I got to get to this next level, and how do I get there? Like, I was never that driven.
But even if you were, you still would flatline. It might just be at a slightly different
smidge higher.
That's right, gotcha. A smidge higher, exactly. Because everybody does, right? I mean, just look at everybody who's ever been in the community. They all have a certain trajectory, and then they have a sort of productive plateau where they do like most of their climbing. But people don't get better forever, right? They don't. My plateau was too low, My natural plateau was too low
for your own liking.
Well, not for my own liking, for my goal of getting all the climbs done. Yeah, no, I'm still on the mission.
You have to see everything to completion.
Absolutely.
Don't you? Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I started it.
This is an obsession. I can't stop. I can never stop.
Awesome.
And so, so I looked everywhere I could look, and I read everything I could read, but there still is a large amount of experimentation that has to take place. You eventually just commit to something.
Does it work?
And see if it works or not.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And there was a solid 10 years where I was motivated. Like you say, I never minded grinding.
No, you're a grinder.
Yeah, I'm a grinder. Yeah. But still I wasn't finding that way forward. And so, yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I started innovating out of necessity.
So what was your first experiment in innovation or major step, let's say?
Oh goodness. Well, that is a little too open-ended.
Okay. How about, and I'm going to mess up the chronology here and you can jump on me again, but at some stage in there, I think you had your own home wall, right? And you were trying to get stronger, focused in there. Is that correct?
So I plateaued in about 2013 at the end of my medical residency.
Okay.
And I also took a job in New Brunswick, which pulled me away from the Nova Scotia climbing scene for a few years.
What level were you plateauing at that point?
V9.
V9, okay.
And I just couldn't really get past
the
that.
Double digits.
Well, yeah. And in Nova Scotia, there's a real harsh, jump at that level. There's sort of all the lines everybody gets done. And I did all of those ones. And, we're thinking about all the, what it really is? There's all the lines that Nick Sagar developed and did the first ascents on. And then there's Ghislain's hardest.
Okay, explain what you're saying.
There's quite a jump there.
So Ghislain's stuff is kind of harder than Nick's?
It's a step above Sagar's, yeah.
And maybe you're doing something similar to what Zig was doing. Maybe you're kind of leapfrogging. So I'm guessing Zig maybe launched off of and was inspired by Nick's pushing levels. Yeah. And similarly, or you can explain how you got there, but you kind of
exactly
stood on those shoulders.
Well, that's what the whole history of climbing has been standing on the shoulders of the developers who came before you, and then trying to make your own addition.
Right.
But what was happening is that I have a whole video on the difference between Nick and Ghislain's style.
I'd love to find it.
That's a little bit of a rabbit hole on its own. But
okay.
Zig came up, adapted to the local style here, and so he mastered the strength that he developed, in his forearms was very specific to our Nova Scotia granite. Nick was an international pro.
Yeah, climbing routes and bouldering. He's probably predominantly a rope climber.
Exactly.
Nick was,
right?
Yeah.
And so he would come here in the off season and, establish some of, at that time, Nova Scotia's hardest problems, but those were not problems that were in our style.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so because of that, they were much more friendly to gym climbers, people with that kind of a background.
Oh, and they had real holds.
They had real holds. They had bigger holds.
Yeah.
They had more straightforward
power.
Yeah, more powerful movement, and frankly, less nuance. And that's how it goes. The developers will end up developing the lines that they excel at. And so he developed in that style, and Zig developed at the similar level, if you were to look at the grade on the rock climb, but in a much more difficult
style.
In a much more difficult style because it's much more nuanced. It's somebody with a lot more local knowledge and local volume, and with the strengths that are specifically adapted to the local rock.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of where I hit a wall, just through doing try hard volume. I couldn't really get past Nick's hardest line, or I got to sort of Nick's hardest lines, but I couldn't break into Ghislain's hardest. And that's where I got stuck. And then my medical residency ended and I left Nova Scotia. And so then I'm sort of cast out into the wilderness. And I'm also, at the same time, I'm hitting that long-term plateau where I'm not getting any further additional progress. So this is when I went to New Brunswick, to begin my career.
Oh, cool. Fredericton, or?
I was in St. John.
How'd you like that?
It was a great place to practice medicine.
Okay.
Yeah. The rock climbing is not great. There is now, but at the time
There is a lot happening now, but I don't know about the boulders necessarily.
the boulders
but the
down
routes are great.
so the boulders down the coastline near St. George, where my buddy Seb has been developing, are pretty spectacular.
Oh, okay.
But those weren't really known about at the time, and it was just a local rope climbing scene. And so again, I didn't have access to bouldering, and so I set my sights on to trying to develop training protocols that would allow me to make that jump into the higher tier of established problems in Nova Scotia. And so that's when I rented the storage locker, because there wasn't a bouldering gym. So I thought, well, I'll build a moon board, but I lived in a small apartment and there wasn't space inside for it, nor was there ceiling height. So I went to Apple Self Storage, rented a decently sized storage unit, clandestinely cut the chicken wire on the top of the storage unit so that I could extend my moon board out above the height limit. And I climbed and trained in there for several years, and that's where again I started making it took a lot of experimentation, a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, but then I started making forward progress again.
All by yourself? Were you self-motivated through that whole period?
Yeah, well, I was the only access to a gym I had was in Fredericton, New Brunswick, actually the university gym there.
I like that. Super old school.
Well, that was Zig's home gym, right? And that was John Bowles was out of there,
and Mitch LeBon.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was, and Nick and Heather sort of did have a tie with that group of climbers as well.
Oh, neat.
And so it was kind of an extension of the Nova Scotia community, like a sister community, if you will, because I mean, our strongest climber, Ghislaine, was out of Fredericton, right? Ben Blakeney was out of New Brunswick as well.
Oh man, yeah.
Right, and so
heavy hitters here.
Right, John Bowles, he won Canadian nationals at Tour de Bloc, right?
Wow.
So, you have a national level climber climbing out of that gym. And what that speaks to is the importance of the right climbing culture, because Fredericton is not a large population center, right? So how does the strongest climber in Canada, arguably, that year, right? How did they come out of a gym in Fredericton, New Brunswick, which is a tiny backwater, really? They had like you see in a lot of European gyms, they had a good culture of hard climbing, right? So if you go to France, you'll see that, right?
Right. It's normalized. Hard climbing is that's
exactly
normal.
That's right. And you go to France, obviously, with Font there, and with a long climbing history, and a large population center. Well, then you get the best climbers in the world. But even a small backwater like Fredericton, New Brunswick. No offense if anybody from Fredericton is listening.
They won't be listening.
Yeah, but can still produce a national level climber, with the right culture of hard climbing. And so
cool. So you got plugged in when you were training in your locker.
Yeah.
In St. John, you would pop up.
I would pop up, and John Bowles would be there, and he's and that's where I met my buddy Seb, and sort of he would go on to sort
What's Seb's last name?
Pacey Smith.
Okay.
He would go on to be my sort of long distance training partner.
Nice.
In that era.
Cool.
Seb has gone on to be, a very strong climber. He just won world championship for grip sport in Las Vegas.
No way.
Yeah.
Is he using the hand of God?
Yeah.
Cool. We'll get there a little bit later.
So we're producing world class grip strength athletes here now in our small backwater of Eastern Canada. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
But yeah, so I met Seb and I trained in the storage locker. As life would have it, I had a job opportunity back in Halifax. I came back and I wasted, well, actually, you know what? It's funny. I had a job opportunity back in Halifax. I came back to Halifax, and you know what I did? I rented another storage locker and put a moon board in it. Yeah, because that's at that.
It works. It works. It works.
Yeah,
you're gonna do it again.
Exactly. That's what I was into at the time, and it did take me about a year to re-engage with the outdoor climbing here. But when I finally got sucked in again for the second, really the third time, this would be my third time engaging with Nova Scotia climbing, because I'd gone away 2 times. And I just really hit the ground running, and it was on at this point, and I was going to finish the goal of climbing absolutely everything, because I had a way forward from a strength perspective. I could finally get my hand strength up to where it needed to be to get all the climbs done. And I just needed to get volume on rock to get my skill up to the point where I could do the more nuanced climbs in Ghislaine's harder style, like I alluded to. And yeah, the rest is history. that would have been in 2019, 2020. And I mean, you can just look at my YouTube history. I climbed everything.
You had finally completed that project
I completed
that you
the project.
started in
2011 project finally got completed, probably around 2021, 2022.
That's a 10-year journey.
10-year journey. I did all of Ghislaine's climbs, and all, the most like all the obscure ones. I got a boat.
Keane's Echo.
I did Keane's Echo here on River Road. I got a boat so that I could do my nude Papillon. Like, I mean, I was a completionist. It all had to get done.
Did you celebrate in some way?
Well, the funny part is that I couldn't exactly tell you the day when it all ended. It just kind of tapered off. There was fewer and fewer lines left, and I would get another one done, and and eventually I looked around, and what am I going to climb today? And it started. That's when I said, that's when I had to change the game again and say, okay, the local climbing has been a progression of standing on the shoulders of the developers who came before you, and I completed everything basically that Nick and Zig had done. So it was time to make my own contribution, and that's when I started developing lines for the very first time.
You must have, during that, you're ticking all those routes.
Yep.
Over the years, you must have spied lines at that point that inspired, perhaps, and maybe looked too hard at the time, or you must have had built up a catalog of potential projects, or was that not the case? You weren't even looking at. You were focused on the other goal.
I wasn't even looking. And the other thing too is I've always some people.
This is interesting. Yeah.
So how do I say this nicely? Some people like to. Some people really want to do first ascents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they want to do first ascents way earlier in the climbing journey than where I was.
That came into my head as soon as you.
Yeah. And when you do everything that somebody's done, like when you do, you climb everything that there is to climb in the guide. You climb out the whole guidebook. You do all of Ghislaine's lines. You do all of Nick Sagar's lines. You do all of the lines from the generation before that. Certain developers, they have a certain almost character.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
You can feel like a Zig line or a Nick line, because you're having that shared experience with them. Yeah. But you can also sort of feel their development ethos. Like the problem is the problem. Cool. The problem is the problem, but certain people are drawn to certain problems.
Right. Their particular strengths or inspiration. Because it's interesting you say that's clearly evident in bouldering. On the route climbing side of things, there's a certain. I guess the same thing, right? What the style you're attracted to, and this, if it's a sport route or how you bolt the route, it's very evident. What developer does what. But anyways, go back to this. You can style feel from.
That's right. Yeah. So the style feel, but so what happened to me is that there would always be like the one-offs. There'd be somebody who didn't really contribute much to the climbing legacy locally as a whole, but they'd have one first ascent.
Right. Like me.
Well,
or Tim Kemple, maybe.
No, I wasn't even thinking about I wasn't thinking about more so many of those guys. It would be somebody who was more integrated, because those were people on away trips who would come and they would do, they would just get a line
Chris
done.
Eager.
Yeah.
Who's coming to mind? Who's in your mind?
So Chris Eager, some of Chris Eager's lines are my all-time favorite. So
cool.
Big respect to some of the lines. Chris,
nice.
Like Buckle Up is one of the best lines out there at V8. Like phenomenal. And
I wanted to get your take on some of the best routes.
And again, same thing though, right? Like Big Tuna, I think, is another Chris Eager line, and like another phenomenal line. Like,
is that Duckhead?
No, Big Tuna is at Polly's Cove. So Chris had an eye for. I really enjoy Chris's lines.
Awesome.
But then there would be people who developed lines that I didn't like so much. And the thing that the thing generally in common there was that they didn't have much mileage.
The developer didn't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the developer didn't have much mileage, and they would sort of it kind of felt like they were sending a line to claim a line, right?
So it kind of contrived?
Yeah, in many cases. Well, there's lots of things wrong with those lines, right? Sometimes contrived. Anyway, I don't want to get too much.
Sure.
I don't want to get too much into it, but
that's fine.
But what that I noticed is that when developers jumped into developing without getting a lot of mileage on established problems, I didn't like what I saw. And
Interesting.
yeah,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
even sometimes somebody's like first lines, right? Like even some of Zig is a phenomenal developer, but some of his very earliest aren't his best in the very, very early era, right? And I noticed that early on, and I was always worried about that. Worried about that if I didn't have the experience to really contribute something of value, then I might botch it. Yeah, exactly. And so I might have went pretty hard in the other direction and literally climbed everything before I, did the first line of my own.
Do you remember what that was? Your first foray into
my first foray
development.
Yeah.
It's got to be a 3-star route, right? 3-star problem.
Okay. No. Well, it was. It's phenomenal. Yeah, refined line.
Refined line.
Yeah.
How hard is that one?
V11.
That was your first boulder problem that you contributed?
Yeah. and also it's beautiful. I mean,
where's this one? And I apologize for my ignorance. If there's going to be boulders listening to this, they're like, of course that's at Polly's Go, or I don't know.
It's in Grover.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so so what it was a Nick Sagar line refined line or fine line that suffered a serious break to the point that it's became an entirely new problem.
Gotcha. Nice rename. Yeah.
Well, and the fine line still exists. It can be done as a stand start, and refined line is so as a stand it goes at V9, which would have been around the original grade, and but the sit adds significant difficulty, a lot more climbing, and just really changes the experience. So so the refined line was the low start after a break of fine line. Yeah, it was a pretty strong. It was a pretty strong opening contribution, I think.
That's you came out swinging.
It's a very beautiful V11 too. It's not it's not just about difficulty. The
aesthetics of a line means a lot, right? Like just to get you pumped and like I'm gonna put everything into this and figure it out, even though if it's way above my capabilities at this particular moment.
Exactly, yeah. And so strong aesthetics and really my first serious project. Ben had been working it as a project, but at that point he had already moved away to Los Angeles, and so it was a lot to ask to do that one on a road trip. And he got very close on one of his road trips, and that was the season before. And then I set my sights on that line and had success. And yeah, that was a hard one to start with, because how you gonna top that refined line? It was a hard first outing to top.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. Gotcha. Can I ask you about grading?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's no one in the province, I would say, who has climbed ticked all the routes.
Yes.
All the problems around.
Yeah.
So I think someone like yourself would be in a unique position you have your own calibration on that, and probably a pretty good one.
Yeah.
But I do hear from people saying, "Oh, Dave's always downgrading problems," and I think they're probably pissed that they ticked a V9 or something, and now it's a V8, so they don't have the V9 ticker. I don't know why people care so much, but what is your perspective on that? Establishing grades for boulder problems.
Yeah, I mean that's it's interesting because there was a major problem in Nova Scotia grading, and I'm setting out on a guidebook problem. I'm setting out on a guidebook project, and the easy thing to do would just be to leave everything as it was, right? Because that doesn't ruffle any feathers, and that's what was done to some extent in earlier guidebooks. Because if you talk to the guidebook author, behind the scenes, one-on-one, they disagree with the grades in their own book.
Right, but they were just carrying on a legacy of
because that's the easy thing to do. And fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a perfection. In addition to being a completionist, I'm also a perfectionist, and so I was unwilling to leave things because there was a major problem. There was a major problem with grade consistency between the two top developers in Nova Scotia, Ghislain and Nick. They had different styles. They had different strengths.
Right.
And it was causing, it was even more fundamental than that. They had completely different, something I talk about a lot on the training side of things is they had completely different forearm specialization between their dominant finger flexors.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're going deep now. Okay.
Well, I'm going deep, yeah, but it matters, right? And this is an insight that is clarifying. The more and more I work on the training side of things, but it was clear to me even at an earlier stage that there was a major discrepancy between the grading standards depending on who the developer of that line
for sure
was.
Yeah.
And Zig
which is
stuff,
natural.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And so Zig stuff was significantly more, it was significantly more difficult and also graded to a much harder standard. So it was a double whammy. It was harder to begin with, and it had a lower number on it.
Right. So was he sandbagging?
He wasn't sandbagging, no.
And his level was calibrated
exactly,
probably from other areas.
His level was calibrated from massive amounts of volume here on Nova Scotia granite. So it was the consistent standard. It was the standard where you could do a V5, a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, and an 11, and there would be a natural and
this
good.
Is harder. This is harder.
That's
this is
right,
harder.
exactly.
Yeah,
so the gradient would make sense, and you could progress. And so why does it even matter? Because when you're trying to develop as a climber, you want to be pointed towards the next most appropriate challenge, because that's going to be the way that you're going to develop in the best fashion. When there's big jumps, or you have performance that seemingly doesn't make sense, so what's happened to some people is that they'll do a grade that's much higher than anything they've done before, and then they go looking for the next hardest thing.
Not possible.
Right? Yeah. And it's because
that was an outlier for that number.
Yeah, or the number wasn't right.
But what about, we already talked about the differences in styles and how, you might find a particular V8 suits your body and your power level or whatever. And the next V8 might be impossible for you, even though it is still a V8.
Well, that's entirely true.
Yeah.
And entirely possible. But that's not really what the issue was when I was adjusting things for my guide project, because there was major inconsistencies. You had V8s that were called V10, and you had, many such cases, right? And that's a more substantial and fundamental problem, because what you're talking about, well, that's the reason why, if you're going to do a guidebook project and you're going to be suggesting grades for it, you need to climb everything. Because when you talk about this style or that style, well, I've climbed all of the styles, right? I did all the different ones. And you also have to have a meta awareness of where your personal strengths and weaknesses lie. Because when you get really nuanced and calibrated in your grading, you don't simply grade on what I thought that it felt like. There's a lot more factors that go into it than that, right? It's like, how hard did I think that it felt? And how does that interact with my own personal strengths and weaknesses at this particular level?
But on some level, most areas, it's kind of like, there's different individuals, different heights, strengths, body types, whatever. And the meaning becomes kind of silly at some point, right?
Well, of course.
A 5 foot.
Well, I climb with Jen. She's one of my main climbing partners. Right? And
Yeah, how tall is Jen?
5'2" or something.
5'2".
Yeah, very small. Yeah. And
but
so
she can just crush anything, it seems.
Well, until she can't, right? There's V5s that Jen hasn't done.
Right.
But Jen's done V10. So a V5 that Jen can't do, does that make it a V10? Right?
Oh, so my point was going towards, it's in most areas it becomes a consensus grading. Where if there's enough, and that's maybe the other problem, there's not enough climbers doing everything at a certain grade to really say this should go up or down.
I have something like 50 second ascents.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that, right? We don't have consensus for a huge number of our problems. And of course, when I was adjusting grades for the guidebook project, there were certain trusted individuals that you would rely on for consensus. Because remember, consensus it's not a democracy. It's like, if it's your first time in Nova Scotia, you don't necessarily get a vote in our guidebook. You're going to go to other people who are doing volume, who are reflective, who have a lot of experience with grading, and ask for their opinions. And of course, that was taken into account on any of the climbs that got changed. It was never a unilateral decision, although it might seem like that from the outside. But it's a consensus among people who have a lot of basis for comparison. Because what happens is that the ones that have been the most controversial have been when it's somebody's first V10, but you know what?
Oh, I know, totally.
It was
you took that away from
but
me.
it was a V8. And of course it was, because it was your first, so it was likely to be an easy example of that grade. But if you've only done one of that grade, what is the basis for comparison? And then what is the basis for complaint? When you look at the grade being changed subsequently,
it makes perfect sense to me that you would take that step and calibrate everything. And I think that's a good thing. Like when I think about the root side of things, it's a complete mess. And there's a historic kind of like sandbaggy thing, which is fine. Like there's areas that are sandbaggy and they have a harder grading scale for that locality. But where you've got totally disproportionate, out of alignment, discrepant grades out there, it becomes difficult. So I think there's a need on the root climate side to rectify that.
For someone to come through, climb literally everything, and try and smooth it out. And that was part of the project, right? In addition to documenting everything, it was also documenting meant filming the climb and sort of like, having it documented in that way. But it also meant like accurate descriptions and accurate grades. That was part of the project. And so, and that was also part of the drive to have so much basis for comparison and do every example that I could find of a particular style. And like you said earlier, I mean, the benefits to your own personal climbing from that kind of, getting outside your comfort zone and just doing all the styles that you hate the most. Like, for example, if you asked me 5 years ago even, what do you think of slab climbing?
Yeah.
Well,
nobody likes that. Nobody likes slab climbing.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Really?
Yeah. Well, no, except that, I love slab climbing now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
I've
cool.
gone on to develop an entire boulder full of Nova Scotia's hardest slabs.
Which boulder is that?
Windy Boulder in Grover.
Cool.
Yeah, and they're the hardest slab climbs you'll find anywhere in Nova Scotia.
So cool. Goes to show you to go where you're not comfortable.
Absolutely.
And you might uncover some gems.
And I didn't just get it done, but I learned to enjoy the process quite a lot, actually. There's something contemplative about slab climbing.
Are you a crack climber now?
No, never. Crack is the space between rock climbs.
That's space climbing. So let's jump. We've talked about the guidebook project, the Mobeta online guide,
right?
Which has, like, at my count, I took a look at it, it's like almost 1,000 problems, or right around there.
Yeah, and there would be more.
Right, that are offline because of private property issues.
Either access issues or there's a sort of a lower bar for quality that probably excluded another 400 problems.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. I mean, the layout and the functionality of that site is amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful site. The aerial photography overlay with the different polygons for different sections and different boulders, cool. It works really well.
Yeah.
So kudos to that. It's just phenomenal. Did you create that? Was that your creative approach? Or is it common everywhere?
No, that's a one-off. And I'm super happy with the result. There's a lot of similar services now that are, like I alluded to earlier, that are coming on the scene. And it's becoming the standard now, or the norm, to have digital guidebooks. But the user interface still for any of these commercial products isn't meant to be used out at the boulders in the same way. So,
but yours is.
Yes, exactly.
Yours is quite functional. Yeah,
exactly. So because I grew up with the paper guidebook, right? So it was always about being able to use it at the boulders.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I mean, it makes perfect sense that the future is digital guides, because it's more. I mean, you can filter stuff down. You're not flipping so much.
They can be updated, right? That's
right.
That's
one they're never. If
they're a living document as long as somebody's still contributing.
Is there a place for printed guides anymore, do you think? Or maybe it depends on the person.
It's funny. It's funny because I feel like that is a question that is just going to come down to your personal values.
You could equally say, should there be libraries anymore?
Exactly. That's right. Or books.
Or
printed
books at all.
Yeah. And so ultimately, that's a bigger question that I don't want to
Sure.
I can answer for myself,
Yeah.
but I can't answer for other people.
Well, that makes perfect sense. Different users have different needs. I like reading proper books.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about guidebooks. I'm talking about novels and things.
I have never found paper guidebooks to be in any way functional. When you go on a trip, and if all that exists for that area is a paper guidebook, it is a nightmare to try and find. Well, like, how do you find what you want to climb?
100%. Yeah.
So you got to go to the index. You got to look up the grade that you're looking for, right? Because you want to know the approximate difficulty, and then you're gonna go through the index, and then you're gonna flip back to the page number, and you're gonna repeat that process 100 times, and it's all going to blend together in your mind. It's a horrible experience.
Tick marks and like sticky tabs,
exactly,
sticky notes,
exactly. Versus, if you were to go to my website, you could just go, I want 3-star V7s.
Oh, I know.
In this area, boom, and it just gives you the list.
It's so cool.
Right?
How do you know how many users are? Can you tell through your web statistics how many users are have used that, or how do you measure?
Have used my website or that function in particular?
The guidebook on Mobeta.
Oh,
which is mobeta.ca, right?
Yeah, it's funny. The user analytics, I used to look at them. I haven't looked in a long time. They basically track the climbing season and community size. So as the community grows every year, then the number of users grows commensurate.
Okay. So on that note, number of users, size of community now. Oh, can you take a guess at that?
It's over 1,000 for sure.
What?
Yeah, I would have. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Over 1,000.
There's 1,000 boulders scrambling
1,000
around.
regular users. Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, it's kind of cool actually.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't look anymore. But it was cool because I could not just look at how many climbers in the community, but I could also look at what are the top 10 most popular problems. What are the top 10 most popular areas?
Yeah. So I see there's a thing on like trending problems. I don't know if that's
I should.
That's not automated.
It's not automated, and I haven't updated it in a while. I should actually. I could automate that, and I should, because that'd be kind of cool to be able to keep that up to date.
Next project for you.
Yeah. I just hadn't. I hadn't thought about that in a long time.
So I started. I've recently poked around on your YouTube site, and similar to the guidebook, I'm super impressed with the quality of the stuff on there and how entertaining it is. And the thing I stumbled on a few months back is your winter projecting stuff up at Al's house. Al's house
West Pennant in
West
general.
Pennant. Yeah. And I was like, the storytelling and just the wacky nature of what you're doing was so entertaining and compelling. And
that's the vibe that I was going for, because the wacky nature of what's occurring there on film is occurring whether or not there's a camera on or not. That's just what my sessions look like. And so I thought there might be some interest in just seeing what things have evolved to in my my current climbing, because once I finished the guidebook project and I had finished all of the climbs, in around 2022, I moved into starting to doing some developing, but I needed an outlet for that other half, right? Because I said that doing photos and videos I don't do that for climbing. I do that because I enjoy that as a separate interest. Cool. And I've always combined it with climbing, right? So I had the guidebook project that allowed me to have an outlet for my photography and my video work, but the guidebook project wrapped, and then I moved into developing, and I was a little bit sad because I didn't have a creative outlet for that side of things. So that's where 2024, I thought, well, maybe I could transition from doing the guidebook project to just showing what my average session looks like.
So that only started in 2024?
Yeah, 1 year. I've been doing that for about a year.
You've got quite a bit of content in there, though.
Well, yeah.
Already, if it's only been a year.
Yeah, I think I probably have close to 50 videos. So one a week. It's every couple of weeks. One every couple of weeks. So it might be over a year now, but it's not too much more than that. And
that's amazing, man.
Yeah, it's been fun. Been different. It's like I said, sort of reinvent my engagement with the activity, with climbing and with the video work, and I thought there might be some interest in the kinds of wacky things that we get up to.
Well, we meaning you and your dogs, or you and Jen, or
I have a rotating cast of guest appearances.
But the winter thing blew me away. It was just you, kind of obsessing about that project, which I think became something Sonata, or is that the one?
So I did some winter time sessions on Hydrogen Sonata.
Hydrogen Sonata, yeah.
But I also did some longer form content this year out at Full Clip in West Pennant.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I did both. I had my
Alice House is West Pennant, is it?
Yeah, they're both West Pennant.
Okay.
I sent Hydrogen Sonata in January of 2025, and then I moved locations. So yeah. So it's true. I had wintertime content at both projects.
So what I'm remembering, what I watched and really enjoyed was, I mean, you had some aerial footage to start with, and you have this little bike. Is it a moped or some kind of winterized?
My electric dirt bike.
Dirt bike. Your dogs are all geared up in their little jackets, and you're riding along. It's freaking cold. It's like -15 or something like that, or worse with the wind chill. And it's pretty cool because you're chatting. You're storytelling the whole way, even though it's like got to be the worst conditions possible, right? Like most people would be, I just got to get and do this thing and keep warm, but you're telling like, this is what we're doing. And I'm freezing my ass off right now. And
I edited a tauntaun from the Ice Planet Hoth because it really was the Ice Planet Hoth that day. That was kind of fun, yeah. So I had a camera rigged to the front of the dirt bike and a microphone, and
it worked well.
Yeah, and I go year round like that. I've been doing that now for many years. So there's a lot of sort of accumulated beta that goes into making a session like that productive. So
tell us about some of the key factors. There's an ice hut.
Yeah. So the real question is why? Why do you do that, right? So the reason to do the wintertime bouldering is because what I found that if I retreat indoors, then when the spring comes, you lose about a month to acclimatizing back to the rock. And that first month that you lose as you're reacclimatizing to the outdoor rock is one of the best months of the whole year. So by climbing year round through the, peak of summer and the depth of winter, it's all about getting one extra productive month in the shoulder season of the primo conditions. And so, there's a utilitarian motivation.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah.
What about peaking? Like, if you heard about training for peak fitness at a certain point in time at that send season, do you consider that, or are you peaking at all times?
No, that's different though. That's on the training side of things.
Okay.
So the way I schedule it is every 4 to 5 days I go climbing year round. Yeah, and I try to maintain that schedule. So the consistency of my climbing schedule never really changes. It's basically always the same in that range. And the way that I manage fitness is a completely separate issue, where I will have training seasons, and those would be in the peak of summer or in the depth of winter. My training volume will go way up.
Right.
So I'm actually performing at a lower level during my climbing days, but that's on purpose, because what I'll do is then I'll lighten that load coming into the peak season and focus even to the point where I will stop training entirely and focus just on climbing.
In your training, you're not climbing indoors, I think, right? You're doing your hand of God stuff and weights and things like that, probably.
That's right. The reason for that is we sort of talked about before the recording started. You get to a level of specialization in any sport where, if there's a 10 or 20% difference between the indoor climbing and the outdoor climbing, well, that 10 or 20% is going to be the difference between being able to do the project or not. 10 or 20% is a massive difference, right? Mm-hmm. If you think about it, when you're performing sort of near your capability. And so I need to be doing exactly the thing I plan on doing come spring season. So that's the reason for getting out there in the depths of winter and making sure what I'm practicing is exactly what I plan to be executing on when the conditions improve. And so in terms of making that reasonable, it's never going to be pleasant. Let's just get that out of the way. Like right now, it's the goal is to get in and get out and, not have any serious frostbite issues.
Yeah.
And the key for making the bouldering doable is just an external source of heat. So that these days, it's actually really easy. That's electric gloves, electric socks, a heat gun with lithium batteries. So, small lithium batteries have been a real revolution in being able to climb all winter. And then, of course, the final piece of the puzzle is a propane heater, because there's no substitute for burning hydrocarbon for like a lot of concentrated heat. And that propane heater is good all on its own, but the problem is that if the wind whips up, you really want to be out of the wind. But unfortunately, as we've discussed, my list of projects has gone very, very small. And so it used to be I could pick something south-facing, out of the wind, perfectly sheltered, and so on and so forth.
You have no choice in the matter now.
I have no choice anymore. I have to be, this is the one project that I have that I'm working this year. That's it. That's my only option.
Right.
And so that's where the tent comes into play, because you always want to be tilting the scales in your favor. And, the tent just allows you to get out of that wind and put the heater inside there. And so you have that refuge to come in, warm up, go out, take as much pain as you can. And it really is, it's painful, because remember, that rock isn't 0 degrees. That rock is -10, -15 degrees. So, you're grabbing something colder than ice. You take a few goes, go back into the tent, warm up, and repeat.
I remember days years ago climbing in weather like that with none of these tricks.
Yeah.
Much easier problems, for sure, but you couldn't feel your feet at all.
Yeah.
Like completely numb feet.
Yeah.
Similarly, hands, and it was just painful.
Yeah, truly. And you're risking frostbite in those, what I mean? Like,
yeah, oh yeah.
And you do that for a bit when you're younger, and then you'll have a close call. You'll have a toe that doesn't come back to life for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. It'll be numb for a while, and you'll be like, okay, flew too close to the sun with that one. So
yeah, no, I love all those tricks you're using. Back to the training you talked about, and not wanting to waste the 10% difference and spend that time on a indoor climbing wall, but be focused on your outdoor projects and really kind of dial in there. Is there a danger of being too specialized, like in terms of your body balancing out the muscles that are, having other activities that complement what you're doing? Do you think about that at all?
Yeah.
Or is that an issue?
It definitely can be an issue. So climbers have experienced this, where you will, if you go too hard on one particular problem, and then you move on to your next line, you'll realize just how much project-specific adaptation you have, and you may have lost in other areas, right? And that is a concern. It's less of a concern. Well, it depends on the style of climb that you're doing. Because if the climb has it all, then you don't have, from a physical standpoint, then you don't have too much to worry about. So what I'm climbing currently, it really has it all, right? It's very, very physical. So I don't have to worry that I'm missing some aspect of rock climbing that I'm going to want to have later for my subsequent project when this one ends. But the other thing that has been revolutionary is the grip training now protocol that I'm using is so complete and dialed in that it actually frees me up to have that kind of singular focus. When the seasons change, or if I send this project and I move on to something else, I know that I'll be equally conditioned for whatever that new challenge is, because I have this other separate side of things apart from the project that I can just trust is going to have my back when I wrap this project someday and move on to something else.
But we're still talking about all this pulling.
Yeah,
I'm wondering about the opposing muscles and shoulder balance, shoulder strength, the pushing side of things, I guess.
Yeah, shoulders, in terms of climbing itself, is a pretty full body activity. So you are going to get most of what you need to stay relatively in balance. There are a few areas that, well, I guess Ben and I did a whole talk.
I'm remembering that.
We did a whole 3-hour talk on this topic.
With more F-bombs added, though.
Well, yeah. We're keeping it classy here today.
Oh, yeah, very classy in the icebox.
So I wonder, but with regards to that, there is some supplementary weightlifting that is advisable, usually around shoulders.
Yeah.
They're sort of the linchpin, but they're also it's also the most unstable joint in the human body. And commonly injured, and the injuries, especially as an older athlete, can be career ending. If you get a bad rotator cuff tear, if I were to at my stage, I may not ever get back to where I'm at currently. So it is a real concern, but it is something that is mitigated through, like I said, I do the supplementary hand strength training and then basically a shoulder routine. But as for everything else, whatever you could be imagining, triceps or,
It's on the rock.
it's on the rock.
Yeah,
You're going to get all that you need on the rock. Shoulders are the special case where you want healthy shoulders. And anybody who's listening to this who's had shoulder injuries or shoulder problems just knows just how challenging that could be to come back from. So,
well, I mean, you're looking at somebody that's had rotator cuff issues. I've had strained it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
maybe
yeah.
not torn, but strained that I just haven't had success or haven't put the time into rehabilitating it well enough, and it always kind of flares up.
That's right. Yeah,
it's a pain in the ass.
You do enough recovery so that you can sleep at night, basically.
Yeah.
And then it comes back in a month or two. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a drag. Well, maybe on the theme of, like, I love these little hacks to make winter climbing more possible. What about just bouldering in general? I've seen some pretty interesting there's a photo of you bouldering. I think it was in a Gripped article, and it has these little shelter things pasted to the side of the rock.
Yeah.
What the hell are those things?
So the
or was it an experiment gone wrong?
No, that's an experiment gone right.
Okay, let's hear it.
So the overarching goal is just to send as many rock climbs, in my lifespan as possible.
Okay.
And so I only have so many primo seasons left, and so I can't wait for a cloudy day.
So you're making sunshades.
I'm making sunshades, yeah. And so the 3D printer has been really a revolution in being able to do those kinds of projects and solve those kinds of problems. I have a whole variety of sunshades. I have articulating sunshades. I have sunshades that come in from the top. I've got.
How do they stick to the rock?
The best. So if anybody out there is looking to stick sunshades to the rock, the best possible tape is the flex tape.
So the principle here is you're shading the holds so that the temperature is a little bit cooler than it would be. Like, how much cooler are we talking about here?
Well, the difference between doing a line on a slopy granite in the sun versus in the shade, you're looking at two V grades easy. Or more, easily 2 V grades. So
the same problem will feel 2 grades harder.
Yeah.
In the sun. Okay. Yeah. So in terms of temperature, though, that was kind of what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That particular hold.
So that is like I have a lot of gadgets, and that's one that I would love to have a thermal camera to be able to quantify.
You don't have a Dave. No. Come on.
So
man.
I have a moisture meter, right, so that I can measure the surface moisture on the rock.
Yeah.
And that's been great.
Yeah.
But yeah, a thermal camera would be the next. Maybe that's
There you go.
I mean, the temperature makes a big difference, but there's also the moisture content. So what happens in the sun is that
burns it all off.
Yeah, burns it all off, exactly. And so for optimal grip on this granite, you really want a really high moisture content.
Yeah, I heard about this recently too, whether it was on your site or hearing other people talk about it. And tell me how this works. Like I understand, like, you actually spray water onto the rock, or is it onto your fingers, or
onto both the rock and your fingers, and that
which is counterintuitive to me because I always think like you don't want slippery holds, right?
That's right. It is counterintuitive.
Like, it's crazy,
but that's the benefit earlier, like we were talking about getting that massive volume in, right? So once you've got 700, 800, 900 cents on this granite, you start having that intuitive appreciation for what's quote unquote sticky or temps. And through that, you're able to notice certain phenomenon, like when it's lightly raining, the rock gets grippier, right? Or foggy days, particularly in the shoulder season, have magical amounts of friction, right? And so,
even though it's sort of like almost condensing, and
exactly.
it's
well,
like
almost condensing is exactly what you want. Yeah. So that's the optimal. So it does depend on the ambient temperature. So the warmer it gets, the less you want moisture on the holds. So if you're climbing in the summer, absolutely, you want the holds to be as dry as possible. So you want to go for those crispy days, bright blue sky, wind from the north.
Dry.
That's the dry summer day that you're after, right?
Okay.
But for the very best friction that you can have on this granite, you want it to be between 0 and 10 degrees. And you want the moisture content on that rock to be just below visible. So by the time you can see it wet,
sure,
it's too much.
Okay.
But just below that, say 15% moisture content on the rock, because at about 20%, you're going to be able to see it.
So you would spray the holds,
and you wait,
and then like tamp it off with a towel or something.
So what you do, you spray the holds and you brush it like applying chalk.
Okay. Yeah. So you work the water in.
You work the water in, and then you wait until you can't see it anymore. Then you hop on for your go.
Oh, okay. You don't physically towel it off. You just let it evaporate.
Yeah. Because if you're adding moisture, you are climbing in dry conditions where it just evaporates in front of your eyes. You'll see it just getting dry. Yeah. It's that fast in dry conditions.
And I've heard mention some advantage to that actually being salt water versus.
Yeah. So
is that true?
Jen swears by salt water.
Okay, this is what I heard. Yeah, Jen.
Right. I don't want to contradict her because however, if I have 20,000 hours of bouldering in on this granite, then she's got 40 easy or 60. She has a multiple of my mileage for sure.
Locally,
yeah. So the jury. Let's just say, let's say I'm unconvinced. But I don't want to contradict Jen because
she's done more research than you.
She has done more research. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. So she swears by the salt water.
Wow.
I find that now, so on your skin, the salt water actually makes sense, right? Because if you put salt water on your skin, it's not going to cause your fingers to get that sort of the water won't absorb into your fingers in the same way to get that like bathtub skin. Salt water will prevent that from happening. So I could see, since we put it on both our holds and the rock, I could see the advantage to having at least a neutral sodium content for the water that you put on your fingers. But as to whether or not that really makes a difference, I haven't seen it yet. But that's not, yeah. It might,
the jury's out. Right?
Might just mean I'm not trying hard enough. That's what Jen would say.
Yeah, I've heard her say that a lot. And is this like a global thing, like boulders everywhere?
No, this is not widely known. I will say from my YouTube comments, there are quite a few people who pipe up and say, "Oh yeah, we've locally noticed this exact same phenomenon." But so there are people out there who sort of appreciate it. But I will say that by and large, when you're out at the boulders, assuming there were other people out there, which in my case would be a pretty rare event, but if there were, and you start spraying water, you're going to get some weird looks.
Got a chance to hang with some pros before, and they were using rubbing alcohol, I think.
Yeah.
To like totally clean off their hands of oils, presumably.
Yeah. So that's
before a session. Is that something you do as well?
Yeah. It's pretty common to do just a dose of liquid chalk, which is always alcohol based at the start of your session.
I've started to use that recently.
So you degrease the skin, which rubbing alcohol is good for. And you get a good base of chalk, and usually just once per session, because if you keep doing that, it'll dry out your skin, and it won't feel great. But yeah, it's pretty commonly done.
Any other tips?
Oh boy,
hacks, bouldering hacks. Or maybe you don't want to divulge all of your secrets.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know.
This is my 2026 YouTube calendar.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody's going to listen to this anyway, so you're fine. In terms of training, we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but do you want to expand a bit more on the hand of God and what that's all about? From what I can tell, you've replaced any other form of traditional squeezy training things with your own device.
Yeah.
That you've created, and now you're selling them, I believe.
Yeah, and that's an interesting not interesting like it'd be super interesting as a story, but it's just an interesting place that I've ended up, because I've never had any desire to sell training devices. Right? What happened is that I was very unsatisfied with what was currently available, just because they don't make any sense, right? Like from an exercise physiology standpoint, from an anatomy and physiology point of view, the current state of the art in rock climbing training would be, I don't know. It feels like the state of physics or something in the 1700s. Like it's
that bad.
It's that bad. Yeah, it's got a ways to go, right? If you just look at what the goal you're trying to accomplish is, and then what are the principles around that goal, and then what are the steps you are taking to accomplish that, it doesn't make any sense the way that it's currently done. So I was pretty unsatisfied with that situation.
Can we just pause there? Because I'm kind of an ignoramus on training in general, but are we talking about the whole fingerboard protocols?
Yeah, basically.
Is that specifically what you're thinking of?
The protocol, the fingerboard themselves, everything about it.
Okay.
It doesn't really comport.
That's why I haven't been doing it.
Well, you know what? There's some truth to that, right? So, I wouldn't fingerboard either. And the reason is because it was unsatisfactory. Now, I have a whole series of videos explaining the nuances here, so I'm just covering it in broad.
High level.
Yeah, I'm keeping it high level here. If the goal is to strengthen particular muscles in your forearm to the maximum extent possible so that they are able to perform in the context of rock climbing, then fingerboards are the wrong tool, and the current training protocols is the wrong dose. So you've got the wrong tool, and then you've got the wrong dose. Because what we're really trying to do is just, you want to give your muscles in your forearm relevant to rock climbing a specific dose of stimulus. You want to recover from that and improve. And you want to iterate that cycle forever, right? You can never get too much grip in rock climbing. Like that's not a problem that you can have, right?
Yeah. Damn it. I've got too much grip.
Yeah. If only my fingers weren't so strong. And so I was just unsatisfied with what was available. I set to work. Basically, I'm married to a hand surgeon, so that's the secret weapon, right? So we discuss the principles of functional hand anatomy for hours and hours and hours. And then I would take those discussions and the understanding that I gained and refine the tools that I was using. And then I'd iterate on this process over years and years. And the end result is basically the product of that evolutionary process that looks radically different from what people are used to. I made a YouTube video on a whim, and where I showed basically what I do, some of the principles that I use to when it comes to finger training. People saw the device, and I really tried to downplay it because I was really trying not to sell grippers. Let me reiterate, I was trying hard not to sell grippers.
You were just saying, this is what I do.
This is what I do, and like how I kind of had to show what I was using in order for that to for the video to make sense, right? So I showed it on camera, and then the rest is history, basically. People weren't having it. I got a bunch of emails, and
like some hate
No, not hate mails. They weren't having me not selling it. No, it's the opposite. No, it's the opposite.
They were buying the Kool-Aid that you're selling. Like the idea.
They were buying the Kool-Aid that I was trying hard not to sell.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So then a climber from Denmark reaches out and is like, "No, this has to become available." Like, this is like. So he pitched me on starting a business to sell these things, and I have a hard time saying no when
a good idea comes along.
Well, it's not even that.
Any idea?
No. It's like, well, why am I, I'm here today doing this podcast because you're doing stuff, and I really appreciate that. Anybody who's out there, anybody who's going to do stuff, I want to support that, right? Because as somebody who does stuff, as somebody who does stuff, when other people are going for it, I really appreciate that. So the guy from Denmark, he was really psyched to get a business going and try to bring this idea to fruition, and so. I didn't want to, but I felt so Philip, sorry if you're listening, but it's true. I really didn't want to, but I at the same time I'm like, well, I'll support Philip.
What he wants to do.
I'll support him in what he wants to do,
right?
Because
he's launching what you started and taking it to another level.
Yeah, I just like the psych and the motivation, and I couldn't say no, basically.
And is he the guy that created the app that goes along with it, or
that's a different fellow that I. Okay. But the same story.
I've heard great things about that too.
Yeah, the same story. So maybe we'll get there, but it happened in the exact same fashion where somebody reaches out, they're a real doer. I'm like, okay, well. I'll team up, right? Like I'll do my part. I'll help you push it forward. Like, I'm not phoning it in. Like, I'm doing my part to make it happen. But when somebody else has that drive and motivation, I admire that. And so I feel like I feel that obligation. And so that's basically how I ended up.
Are you happy with it now? Like you sounded trepidatious about getting it started, but are you glad this has got to a place where it is?
Just like everything, the journey has been super, super interesting. Yeah, there's been lots and lots of positive aspects about just going through the process because
learning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because my other hobby is just problem solving, just solving puzzles, right? And like, boy, there's been some good puzzles that needed solving, right? So the puzzle solving aspect of it has been fantastic. I've had so many really, really cool personal correspondence with with early customers, people reaching out, just the stories they're sharing.
Are there pros using that tool yet?
Not to my knowledge. People ask that question regularly. They're not really my target demographic, right? Because for a professional climber, you're already at the top of the game. So there's a huge switching cost for them. to like whatever they're doing to prep for climbing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
right?
It's working for them.
It's clearly working because they're the best.
Yeah. Right.
Does that mean that what they're doing is the best? No, that's a common logical fallacy people have, right? They look at the pros and they say, I should do what they're doing because they're the best. And it's like, well,
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, that logic is not sound. But that said, if you are a pro and you are the best, then there's a significant switching cost.
Sure. And there may be some positive gains beyond that, or in fact, there likely would be. But it's that switch over.
There likely would be, yeah. So I think it would work for them. But I also see why they are not. The pros are not going to be early adopters to a new technology. They never will be, right? And so what you're going to see is that what you'll more likely see is the striving pros, like the lower, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting cohort. Yeah,
those will be the guys looking for an edge, and that's where you'll see the more willingness to adopt something new.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of international interest in this product.
It's fully global. Yeah.
Where's most of your interest coming from?
There is no most. It's crazy. It's fully global.
Really?
The interest is fully geographically distributed. Every continent on Earth except Antarctica.
There's some Icelandic climbers.
I don't know if I'd have to check whether we've shipped to Iceland. That's my business partner. He does the shipping for the rest of the world. I just do US and Canada.
Okay.
And
you're a busy dude.
But truly, I couldn't tell you. So like America, obviously, as a giant population south of our border, they are the majority of the customers that I'm shipping to here out of North America.
How many bits of product have you distributed? And I think you've got a couple different sizes of the hand of God and the...
Yeah, we've shipped out something like 400 or 500 individual pairs of grippers. Pairs of grippers, yeah.
Nice.
And most people are buying both.
Really?
Yeah, it's been great. And they are synergistic, right? So it gets back to that discussion we were having earlier about the difference between Ghislain and Nick Sagar in terms of their dominant finger flexor, and how they both had a significant imbalance and they complemented one another. They had each other's opposite strength. Well, with these hand grippers, they're specifically designed to even that out and allow you to develop fully in both major styles of climbing. So
cool.
Yeah, and so it is cool that people through watching a YouTube video have been able to recognize that. Like, it's cool that the customers have been able to watch the video, sort of hear the message, and that resonates to the point that they have really been adopting both. Yeah, been buying both grippers, absolutely.
And great feedback.
And we've had a lot of people who've bought one gripper to start, and they're coming back for the second gripper.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's cool to see. Yeah.
Man, I might have to give that a go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you were just saying, though, that you're allergic to training, was it?
Well, this sounds like more fun than... Oh, no, it's painful, too.
It's painful and horrible. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah. It's worse, actually.
Oh, God.
Like, a lot worse. Yeah. There was a discussion on the Discord as to whether or not you could lose consciousness during one of these training sessions. Yeah. Like, it was a serious discussion. So.
And what's crazy is, these videos I've been watching of yours, where you're out with Jen lately, it seems like you guys have been making a few exploration videos and projecting videos.
Yeah, we teamed up to develop the Skyhook boulder this summer. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
And then it seems like at the end of your sessions, most of them, maybe all of them, it's approaching darkness, and you're still committed to doing a training session with your grippers.
Post-session training is the best.
Awesome.
Because, it's the
warmed
best.
Up.
You're fully warmed up.
Yeah.
Like, your psych is high because you're right there at the boulder, right?
Yeah.
So there's nothing like going into the pain cave, which is what people call the using these grippers, but where you can still see the reason you're doing it, though, right? Because when you're doing it at home in your apartment, like, it's kind of abstract.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, it's disconnected from the goal, right? But when you're there and you're looking at the project that you want to get done this season,
dude, if we could be in the ice box, super stoked about the yellow hole problem here. Maybe. Dave's making faces at my wall because the holes are way too big for him, I think.
So, how many locals have bought grippers? Not very many. The vast majority are all over the world. Yeah, it's all spread out.
Coming back to local, what's your perception of what the current scene is like here in Nova Scotia right now? You mentioned... We said there's like 1,000 pebble wrestlers running around out there these days, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
which is mind blowing actually. In terms of hard bouldering, like where are people at? Where I don't know what you call. Well, what do you call hard bouldering? When does that start? V10, V11,
V11 and
V11 and up.
There's a big jump. 10 is the transitional point, right? 9 is where it's
hardish.
Well, it's not just that. We were talking about natural plateaus, like the point that you kind of get to, with just serious dedication to getting out there and getting on rock. My observation over the years has been that's about V9 in Nova Scotia. That's where I got to personally, and that still seems to hold to this day. So you'll see the common rock climbs in that zone get a lot of traffic.
Okay,
those will be the I could start naming them, but like Kleos, like Double Crossed, Resurrection Skills Inventory. These are the climbs that get all the traffic. Now, everything I just mentioned there is a Nick Sagar first ascent, you see.
Yes, but you've probably graded them as they should be. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, cool.
But I guess the community progresses exactly the same way that I progressed 10, 15 years ago when I was coming up, right? It still looks like that, or at least that's my observation.
Right, but there's just more people doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. So at any given
and
level,
they're all getting to a similar. They're following the same progression.
Even the same problems. So you can look at Sendage. It's the same. It's the same ones that I did.
Yeah. Right.
When I was coming up, are still the most popular and most sought after.
Cool
lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of hard bouldering, then what does it look like?
Then you start hitting the 10s, and that's a transitional zone where it starts. The difficulty starts ramping up, and then there's a real transitional point at that V11 level where the nuance and the hold size the nuance is ratcheted way up and hold size is ratcheted way down. And so it seems to be where there seems to be a big jump there where it gets a lot harder. And then it only gets worse from there, right? So you start getting into even the next tier above that, and you're now looking at really very difficult rock climbs.
And these rock climbs you're talking about, because of the nuance you're speaking of, probably requires a lot of time and dedication to unlock those things.
That's right.
Because they're not an obvious grab the crimp.
That's right.
And pull.
Yeah, so you have to be strong to do them, but you have to have mileage as well. So, and that's where it's much more of a commitment at that level because you need to be getting out and getting that on rock mileage. The gym, the skill that you're getting from the gym is not translating to the same extent anymore.
And would you say these problems in this area at 5'11" and up, or sorry, 5'11", V11, difficult to flash compared to V11s elsewhere in the world? Would you say
almost impossible? There are,
given that nuance and
that's right. Yeah, granite is extremely hard to flash, and this is not a theoretical consideration. My buddy Seb, who we mentioned earlier, world's strongest hands, right?
Yeah,
he can flash that level in other climbing areas, no problem. It would be inconceivable for Seb to flash V11 in Nova Scotia. And I think that we have lines that I don't think any professionals are now flashing, all the way up to the highest echelons of bouldering, but we have lowly V12s and 13s that I think it's impossible for anybody to flash.
Ooh, so the gauntlet has been thrown.
The gauntlet has been thrown down,
yes.
but I do believe that to be true.
And speaking back to your climbing evolution, you've done all these previous problems. You're putting up your own first ascents, and you're pushing the bar locally up to what sort of V12, maybe even V13. Is that where you're operating at right now?
The projects that I'm currently operating on at the moment would be V13.
Wow.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow. And how does that compare to what else is going on in Canada right now?
Oh goodness, I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I am completely disconnected. I would imagine just like everywhere else in the world, the grades are being pushed into just astronomically high values. Now we could talk about that. That's a if you want to get spicy here.
Oh dear. Let me get some water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess, to bring that home, what happens is that at a certain point, hard is hard, right? It's hard for everyone.
Yeah, and I had the impression that you weren't actually grading things for a while.
Not anymore. No,
is that true?
I have since stopped. Yeah, Hydrogen Sonata.
Hydrogen Sonata. So I think you were proposing grades of V12, V13, or maybe that was just in response of everybody asking.
Yeah, that was in response. Ben suggested that.
Okay.
He came here this spring and put a number of sessions in on that climb. And remember, Ben did the first ascent of the stand start, which is called Winter of Our Discontent.
Oh, okay.
So he has a good sense for that line, right?
Yeah.
As the person who did the high start, and then now he's worked the low start. Ben suggested that I graded at that level, and so I just acquiesced.
Nice.
And the reason is because there was a time when I was climbing everything, and I had huge amounts of comparative volume on all the different climbs. But it's been years now. I haven't climbed somebody else's climb.
So it's all just hard now.
It just feels hard, and like even if it's not that hard, even if I think it's a intermediate level climb, say,
Yeah.
that feels hard too.
It's hard to you.
It feels hard. I spend fewer sessions, so like they all feel about the same when you send, right? Even the hardest lines that I've ever done feel about this. They feel
interesting. Yeah.
They feel the same as an intermediate line because you send when you're ready to send, and so the effort on that send go is often very similar. You're just so much more dialed in at the higher grade. But it doesn't. If you ask me how hard the hardest thing I've ever done, well, it feels no different than a summer day on Dover doing a moderate.
Interesting. Yeah.
And it really does have
That's
that.
a cool concept.
So it does become somewhat theoretical, and that's where you do need to be getting that volume all the time, the comparative volume.
If you're interested in putting numbers to grades.
If you're interested in accurately putting numbers on things. And so if you're a professional rock climber, then you are doing that comparative volume. That's the game. You travel the world and you do other people's climbs, and then you do your own climbs. And right, that's the game they play.
Yeah.
I've sort of run out of comparative volume here, and I spent all of my time working the same half a dozen lines. So I'm losing sight.
Who else is in that cohort of people locally that are working at that level, or are there any?
There's no cohort.
So Jen's pulling some pretty hard.
Yeah, we climb together for sure. Yeah, no, Jen is
probably one of the strongest female boulderers we have here.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah. So how many people are climbing hard boulders, say V11 and up, around here? Do you even know? Would you guess at like 20, 10, 6?
Oh, 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's always been a vanguard, right? Like we started at the beginning. And, someday when I hang up the chalk bag, it'll be somebody else, probably,
pushing a little bit further or whatever. Yeah.
Repeating my lines and then pushing into the next tier of difficulty.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there seems to be a lot of strong climbers out there from my vantage point, but maybe like you were saying earlier, they're kind of like, they're at those, they're pushing into hard climbing.
That's right.
They're not necessarily, they're breaking into that zone.
That's my impression. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's, like I said, there's a few who are sort of breaching that hard barrier at the V11 era, zone, but it's yeah.
So cool. What inspires you these days? And I feel like historically, you were probably motivated by Ben Smith's achievements and Zig and perhaps others. Is there inspiration that you're getting from other climbers anywhere, or is that not even relevant?
It's interesting. Yeah, I agree with the framing. Nick and Zig, the two of them together, really were instrumental. Like repeating their legacy and documenting that. That was
super inspiring.
That was my North Star for many years, right? And then when I transitioned into starting the development phase. Obviously, Ben was a big inspiration as well, and the lines that he did. And then, I did say at the end of my video in Hydrogen Sonata, it like that line felt like the end of an era. Like that's how I ended that video, right? I kind of faded to black with those words because that's what it felt like. Where I think looking back, there'll be a distinct line between that'll be the dividing line between what I'm doing now and what I was doing up until now. And what I'm doing now, like I said, at every stage I've kind of had to change the game always forward, never back. You have to reinvent my engagement with the sport to hold the interest, to keep that obsession going, right? And looking forward, like what inspires me now? Yeah, I think I've evolved. I've like evolved into a new species. I basically, you know what it is? It's Jen. You know what? I'm going to say it's Jen now. I say if you stick with the sport long enough, all roads lead to evolving into just becoming Jen. You want me to explain that?
Yes, please. I think I have an idea, but I couldn't articulate what that is. Knowing Jen a little bit as I do.
Yeah.
Sort of like I want to say Zen. There's some Zenness.
She climbs just for climbing's sake.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, what are you going to do today, Jen? Well, go climbing. What else is there?
Yeah.
Right? Like.
Yeah. So simple.
Yeah. Well, what line are you going to do? I don't know. All of them. Any of them. Where are you going? Like,
Nice.
It's a different, Jen has spent.
Well, it's the journey, not the destination.
Truly. And right. and that is trite to say. And it's almost, but like, in such an authentic sense, she embodies that. Like it really is just about getting out there and touching rock, and it kind of has to be that way, for the long term, because, I'm going to send a line now, once every couple of years now. So then what am I doing in the interim? It can no longer be goal orientated.
Good for you.
Like I have a goal, right? Like just like Jen does. She has a goal. Someday she'll send the climb that she's working currently, maybe. Yeah. But that is truly not what it's about. And it was a long journey to kind of get to this point.
This is awesome, man. It feels like you've really come to a deeper understanding of.
Well, truly, because I started with an extreme goal-oriented nature and like min-maxed that to the greatest extent I possibly could, to the point of, I couldn't climb the climbs anymore, so I had to invent new hand grippers, right? I had, like, what am I going to do? I have to, in order to push forward, I have to blaze a new trail. But the trail feels kind of like I've kind of like the trail is now just open. It's just opened up into
liberate. This is liberation.
Yeah, it's true. And that's what it felt like. It felt like sending Hydrogen Sonata felt like the end of that goal-oriented phase of climbing. And now it is, I'm just gripping.
Just enjoying the ride.
Yeah, because that's, and it was a long journey to get to that point because I could have told myself I was there before. You know what I mean? Like, because that's aspirational, right? Like everybody would like to be just there for the ride. Like everybody says it's about the journey, not the destination. But is it? But
it's good to have that aspirational goal to put you on that journey.
Well, for sure. Right? Exactly. That's what I mean.
You got to get on the train to somewhere.
Yeah, it felt aspirational. But now that's kind of the thing. Like, yes, well, do I grade anymore? And it's like,
there's no point.
It's like almost there's no point, right? The point is for those who come after me, but like I'll just wait for the person who sends it second, and I'll chat with them and like I'll share my thoughts and help them in their understanding. But for me personally, yeah, I don't know.
What motivates you to keep climbing after all these years?
You reach that point where I'm a climber now. There's nothing else for it. Like it's just part of me. There's nothing else, so I can't stop.
Well, this has been a real treat, Dave. Thanks for taking the time and coming out here, and really to meet you, despite knowing about each other for decades now. I was excited to have this conversation, and it's really lived up to my expectations. So, anyways, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Dave. That was awesome. If you got this far, you're probably wondering what happened to Mobeta, as it's been offline for the past few weeks. I don't have any updates for you, but I'm hoping that it will resurface again in some form or another. I want to give a huge shout out to Climb Nova Scotia for coming on board to sponsor the podcast, as well as East Gate Climbing, Seven Bays Bouldering, and Unfiltered Brewing. Stay tuned for more episodes. You can find out more at iceboxsessions.ca. I will catch you later.
I do tend to get obsessed with things.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't do cracks?
The only thing I don't do.